Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. I'm Trevor Lane. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the YouTube channel as well as the podcast side over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Joined as always by Keith Smith. Keith, how you doing? We got a decent amount of news to get into today, including some news that I really hate.
Yeah, one of the stories is no fun, and we'll get into that in a moment here. A couple others are a little more fun. There's
Mm-hmm.
trade rumors are circulating, swirling around some people. We've already talked about how we're going to need a Jimmy Butler drop. It feels like we might need a what does the Fox say drop here coming up pretty soon. But I think we're waiting for the Fox to say I want to trade, and I don't know if he's going to actually say that or not. But man, things are swirling around DeAaron Fox right now.
Have you ever seen the videos of that people have, like, I don't know if they would be considered domesticated, but they've got foxes that they keep, and you've ever heard the foxes laugh, like the noise that they make?
Yeah,
oh my gosh,
crazy.
like I will go down a YouTube rabbit hole and find like 10 of these videos of these foxes like rolling over and getting their bellies scratched and laugh. Anyway, it's like cleansing for the soul to watch this.
They remind me a little bit of how like they have like as our dog lets out a massive grunt on the floor. He's asleep and he's stretching in his sleep. It reminds me the fox sound reminds me a little bit of why they say like hyenas have a laugh. Because they have like a similar type thing, which I mean, they're probably all, if we go back far enough, they're probably all related to each other some way or another anyway. So I know some animal person now will be like, that's not true. Actually, they're different subspecies and what is it? I don't remember all the kingdoms and all that other stuff.
I don't remember all the biology.
That's information I once knew that has been purged and filled with like, hey, this guy might get drafted with the 50th pick in the draft.
Exactly. That's what has happened. Absolutely. Well, while we're talking about foxes, DeAaron Fox, Sam Amick of The Athletic had a great piece on DeAaron Fox today, talking about just how messy things have been with the Sacramento Kings and the way the Kings have kind of just let Fox dangle out there to get blamed for in some circles, get blamed for the Mike Brown situation, and just how, if anything, the Kings, by firing Mike Brown, may have actually, at least the way they've handled the firing, have pushed Fox closer to saying, yeah, I want out of this thing. I don't want to be part of this anymore. So all the word is, whether it's Mark Stein, whether it's Amick, whoever, is that the Kings don't intend to move Fox by the trade deadline. Obviously, that could change if Fox says, I want out now. But, of course, the big important point this summer, Keith, is when the Kings offer that extension to DeAaron Fox. If he says no, that's it. He's on the trade market. I don't think the Kings can do anything but look to trade him if he declines that extension this summer.
Yeah, you could make the argument that DeAaron Fox is betting, hey, I'm going to get back to all NBA, and then he's going to sign the designated player contract. At that point, It would no longer be the extension. And that could be the way. That's kind of where we're at with Donovan Mitchell. But yeah, I think we're nearing a point here where, this is just where we kind of get to in the NBA, right? A guy gives a team 7-8 years, plays really well for that team. And then if they're not winning at a high enough level, oftentimes that means a breakup is inevitable. And it feels like that's kind of where we're trending with De'Aaron Fox now. I wouldn't have said that, obviously, 2 years ago, coming off the playoff appearance. Wouldn't have said that a year ago. I would have felt pretty good about it this summer. Feels like, yeah, that may be where we go. So I don't know. I'm curious here. The teams mentioned that are in on them because they're like the mirror images of each other on the East and West Coast, Miami and Los Angeles, because they're going to be mentioned with every single star. It's just how the game is played. But San Antonio, even I think Amick's piece said the Spurs are where the most noise is right now. And then Mark Stein had some subsequent reporting that Houston could be in the mix, but he's hearing the same thing. Like, the team you need to look at is San Antonio, which, makes sense, right? Their point guard right now is Chris Paul. That's obviously not a long-term situation. Stephon Castle can play off ball as well as play on ball. So you could find, obviously, backcourts that work with him and Fox together. And Fox is young enough to fit, right, with the timeline, because Wembanyama is already so good you'd be okay with a guy who's in his late 20s like Fox is, especially if you're like, hey, we're trying to win right now. That does make a ton of sense, and they've got young players that could probably interest Sacramento via trade.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's and look, he'd be a great pairing with Wemby. And that's a little scary for the Western Conference if DeAaron Fox teams up with Victor Wembanyama. That would be a hell of a pairing. It would be very, very exciting for San Antonio. But the Kings, they're not going to go down without a fight. They don't want to lose him. They are going to be, and Keith, this is where I worry about the Kings maybe doing something desperate here at the trade market or by the trade deadline, February 6th. But the Kings reportedly in on Cam Johnson, and maybe the team that is most in on landing Cam Johnson that's out there. Obviously, very, very motivated. They want you add pieces right now to take to DeAaron Fox and say, see, look what we did. Don't you want to stay now? And obviously, it will take winning for that to really come around there. But what do you think about the Kings as a landing spot potentially for Cam Johnson, who you could make an argument would fit basically on any team?
Yeah, if you're telling me it's Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and a first, okay, fine. Yeah. Like, I don't mind that. That's, pretty big upgrade over Huerter. Lyles has missed a lot of time anyway. I would think you could find a replacement level big for him in your rotation. And there you go. You move forward with, all right, we're going to run forward with Cam Johnson as part of our win group here. And then we'll figure it out around that. But if you start talking about 2 firsts, or it's like, hey, we're going to throw Devin Carter in, who Carter is healthy now and is looks pretty good by all accounts that we're hearing. It looks like he'll play, or if it was like, we're going to put Keegan Murray in a trade, that's now you've tipped it way too far. And it's like, that's not, now the value is all headed towards the Nets in that trade. So I'd be very cautious, and I'm with you. This is the kind of thing where 5 years ago, the Kings, if you told me, yeah, they traded Keegan Murray, Devin Carter, Kevin Huerter, and 2 firsts for Cam Johnson, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, that's a Kings thing to do.
That's a Kings thing.
Yeah, Kings thing. Yeah, exactly. So hopefully that's not where we're going with this. But yeah, if you can get them for a reasonable cost, sure, why not? They've won their last couple games now. They've looked a little better. I noted this in the basketball bulletin. I think Doug Christie's done a really good job staggering the Fox-Sabonis pairing lineups, meaning those two guys are like running everything with those two, and then DeMar DeRozan getting enough minutes where it's like a DeRozan-centric lineup. Staggering that's giving all those guys enough room kind of to breathe and enough room to operate versus kind of cramming all of them together. So that's where I think it's, it looks a little bit better over the last couple of games. So there's a long way to go yet. And that's why I'd also be very careful and cautious of, do I really want to go all in right now on, making another addition, not knowing where we're headed and what's going to happen with DeAaron Fox.
Well, and I think one of the things to remember too, and I've been the one saying the Kings, they should be better than what they are record-wise right now.
Sure.
And we've talked about that they should be better. So by no means am I trying to discredit the Kings, because really the last couple of games that they won, like they probably have some other games that they should have won and maybe just got a little bit unlucky or just didn't execute in crunch time. But when I look at Sacramento right now and I see these wins, you got the Mavs, but a very injured Mavs team that you beat. You beat, no Luka. I believe they were out Kyrie that game as well. And then you beat the 76ers, but without Joel Embiid. Now, it took a hellacious comeback run in the fourth quarter, which was still exciting. Yeah, exactly. So you got to give them credit for it. But I'm just saying, it's not, I don't look at these 2 wins and say, everything is fine now in Sacramento. It's all fixed. Again, I don't want to take any credit away from them either. Just saying you can't just jump to that conclusion just because 100%. They won a couple of games here.
Yeah, absolutely. The front office can't let that sway. If you're believing our path leads in a different direction, you can't let these couple of wins sway you on that, right? Because I think even their fans would be like, yeah, they're, again, better wins than what they've been getting, obviously, because they hadn't been getting wins, but better than that. But yes, these are not, you didn't beat Oklahoma City, you didn't beat Cleveland, you didn't beat Boston. Like, these are, teams that are very banged up and without guys. But, hey, better than losing them, which they had been doing.
Absolutely. All right, Keith. So last night we had a couple of really rough moments. We saw Maxwell Lewis go down in his first game as a Brooklyn Net. Just a weird. Yeah, and Jakob Pertl stepped on his foot. I mean, not intentional at all.
No.
Just stepped on his foot, and he just kind of tweaked his knee, and I, and then we had Jaden Ivey with the now it's been announced a broken fibula. I mean, you knew something was very wrong. He got his leg caught under him. It's not like his leg snapped or anything, but you could just see the way his
bad.
foot turned. It was
And
bad.
he knew immediately it was
He
bad
knew.
too.
He was screaming down on the ground. It was hard to watch. So now the Detroit Pistons. Now he's not officially declared out for the season, but almost certainly the bulk of the remainder of the season. It's very possible that we get towards the end of the season and it's okay. That's, we're not going to bring him back after all.
Sure.
But there's the potential if the Pistons make a playoff run or something like that, maybe he can come back in. But with the Detroit Pistons now sitting right here in the East, they're the 9 seed. What happens? I mean, he's such a big piece of what they do. What do they do now in Detroit?
Yeah, again, don't overreact, right? Don't go crazy with, oh my gosh, we need to trade for Cam Johnson or replace him.
Sure.
Again, if you could get Cam Johnson on a good enough trade, sure, why not, right? I think the Pistons are, if you look behind, if you're the Pistons and you look behind yourself, right? Because you're not overly, they think, ambitious about, I mean, maybe the Pacers because they're not that far away, but like how high are you realistically getting? Maybe 7th? Like, so you're not really worried about those teams. So you're looking behind you. All right, Chicago, yeah, we're on equal footing with them. Philadelphia, they lost to the Kings, as we said. Tough loss for them there, but they're playing better. But Brooklyn, Toronto, Charlotte, and Washington, they're all out, right? They're all gone. So now we're really at a point where it is, if you're Detroit, it's like, man, we might do this, right? We might make the postseason here. So, where do we go with this? So you got to start to kind of think about it. I think in the short term, the answer is you don't do anything. You will increase Marcus Sasser's minutes as the backup ball handler to Cade Cunningham. Then because Ivy really plays that role. Ivy, he's in a weird spot with the Pistons because he starts, but then he usually comes out a little earlier, usually for Malik Beasley. Then when Cunningham goes to the bench, Ivy comes back and Ivy runs the offense. So Sasser will see increased minutes there. The easy one that people are going to is, well, Beasley starts. I don't know that's the direction they go. He's very comfortable in that 6-man role. They like him there. So maybe you start Thompson. Maybe you start Ron Holland there. Yeah, either way, both of those guys will play a little bit more. And you just lean on those guys internally. But yeah, I would say it's maybe a little more likely now that Detroit says, all right, let's go make a move and get somebody here. And it's important to remember $14 million in cap space. There's a lot of things they can do that almost nobody else can because they have that kind of flexibility to be able to do that. They can take on contracts or large chunks of a contract without sending much back to the other team if they're looking to get off some money. So I would expect they're going to be active moving forward. They also have an open roster spot, which tells us they'll be active.
This is where that Paul Reed move that they made that we credited them for it being such a shrewd move and saying, well, it may not mean anything. It could amount to nothing, or it could, it's another option. Now it seems more likely that it will become something that they could take advantage of. Just the fact that they've got more money out there than most teams do to go and play with and try to get something done. It'll be interesting to see. It's a bit different seeing Detroit essentially in a buyer's position, but I think that's probably where they should be. Like, they've got a chance to legit make the postseason. And even if their stay in the postseason is short-lived, even if we're talking that it's just a play-in game or a couple of play-in games or whatever it is, however long they're there, that's valuable experience for guys like Cade Cunningham, their young core that they're going to be building around. That's valuable experience for these guys. I don't think Detroit should be trying to fall into the tank race or anything like that right now. You might as well keep going for it. Ivy, that hurts you. It's a big loss. But if you could find a piece that can help you move forward, and I think Cade Cunningham is good enough to where in the East, I don't know, Philly probably catches them. But other than that, I think they've got enough to probably hang in there.
Yeah, completely with you, because we don't know what the Bulls are going to be, right? If the Bulls do sell off veterans, now all of a sudden it could be Detroit by default, right? Is in the play-in tournament just because they're the best of what's left. And you're absolutely right. I mean, they're so far ahead, which is awesome, right? Compared to where they've been the last couple seasons, they're so far ahead of these teams. They couldn't even bottom this thing out effectively anyway. Not at this point. They're like 7-8 games ahead of the teams at the bottom of the league. So there's no way you're getting down into that range. You can't lose enough now to make that happen. And I'm not going to insult Pistons fans by saying like, hey, and sell them like hope of, hey, we're actually good and we could be something. But I think it is they love this team. I've seen that regularly across social media. We see that in our front office Friday shows with the Pistons fans who show up regularly. So give them something to really root for and go for. Like, so that's why again, it doesn't need to be, you don't have to get silly. Like, you don't need to trade for Zach LaVine or trade for Brandon Ingram or anything nuts, but you can make moves that kind of bolster you and keep you going. And I think that's big for Detroit right now, especially, in the wake of this Ivy injury.
Keith, I'm seeing right now a report that Jaden Ivey, he had surgery. I saw Shams report earlier about, maybe he can get back this season, that he's going to be reevaluated in a month. He had surgery today, underwent surgery for a broken fibula, and he'll be reevaluated in 4 weeks. I mean, I know we're into January already, but we're talking about pre-All-Star break for that. That seems insane. Is he Wolverine? What is that?
And my guess is that's probably more of a
we're just gonna check in.
Yeah, like right, like I remember when because Jaden Ivey and I are the same, right? Especially when I was in 6th grade, the same level of athlete. When I broke my leg in 6th grade, they were like 4 weeks. We'll look at where you're at as far as taking the cast off.
That's probably
so. My guess is it's probably something along those lines. But also too, and I got caught on this. I thought it was Jaden Ivey's Twitter account. Was sharing some stuff.
I think I retweeted it after yours.
Yeah. And it wasn't. It wasn't. It was not his Twitter account. I had a couple Pistons friends and people who cover the team like, that's not Jaden Ivey's account. He has an account, but he doesn't really ever tweet, as far as I know. The one thing that account did say, though, that I thought was good, I've seen some people saying Cole Anthony's a dirty player and tried to hurt him. I could tell you guys, Cole Anthony is 100% not a dirty player. Plays very hard, and that's all it was. He was playing hard. He was going after loose ball. I almost said the bad word. Stuff happens, right? Stuff happens sometimes. It is, what it is. It sucks, and we hate it, but it's part of the game. There was nothing malicious there, nothing dirty meant. It just happened, and then that sparked a whole round of, I don't know if you saw this, a whole round last night and this morning of, should we eliminate diving on the floor? And it's like, all right, what are we doing here? Like,
I mean, I think the issue isn't so much the diving on the floor part. I mean, that could be if you have a 200+ pound human being diving into someone else's legs, bad things can certainly happen, right? Like that can certainly happen. But I mean, it goes too far. When I think the challenge with the NBA is we get these plays where the rules tend to just evaporate as soon as the ball hits the floor, and then guys are wrestling for the ball. It's that type of stuff, but that's not what this play was. That's not what happened there. So it's a different conversation.
They didn't dive in on top of them or anything. It was just a loose ball. He was going for it, and they got tangled up, and it sucks. So although I mean, hopefully Jaden, I mean, he's young enough. Maybe he can get back before the end of the year. So let's say it's 8 weeks before he can do stuff again. That's March, beginning of March. Maybe by the end of March we could see him. I don't know. We'll see. I'm hopeful. But if I was the Pistons, I would be treating this as if, hey, he's out for the year. Then if something great happens, but bonus benefit, let's go, and we'll go from there.
Exactly. Lakers fans are approaching Jared Vanderbilt the same way. If it turns out he is not a mythical creature, then great. That's a bonus. But we are expecting that he does not actually exist.
People tell me Gordon Hayward played for the Celtics. I mean, I remember 5 minutes of him playing for the Celtics. After that, I don't really remember.
Keith, how much does it suck that when you say that given that he had a great NBA career, a long career, but anytime you say Gordon Hayward, the first thing you think of is his foot pointing the wrong way.
Yeah. It's in the way it happened to opening night, 5 minutes in. They just I don't know. You know what? They won last year. I don't need to relive those bad times anymore. I can live in the good place. My good place, your bad place.
My bad
So,
place.
yeah.
This is
Moving
the bad
on.
place. All right, let's go here. The Mavs are looking for perimeter defense, aren't we all? The Mavs are looking for perimeter defense right now, and there was some buzz that they would be interested in Herb Jones, but again, 29 teams would be making the call on Herb Jones if
Herb
he were
Jones is
available.
getting traded.
No, he's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna if he does, it's gonna be part of some ridiculous offer.
I'll tell you what this is, Keith. If I'm the Mavs and I'm sitting down in my war room and I've got my whiteboard and I'm talking with my team and we're talking about, well, we need more perimeter defense. I'm making a list of all the best perimeter defenders and Herb Jones is on that list. And then you start going through and okay, who could we realistically get? You hope that nobody takes a picture of anybody else standing in front of that whiteboard, a la the Orlando Magic. But that's probably like, if the Mavs are looking for perimeter defense, yes, you have to have the conversation on could we get Herb Jones? Sure. It's a very quick no, but that's probably the end of it. But are there other perimeter defenders out there the Mavs could be interested in? Sure, I'm sure there's some other guys that they could touch base on. But the whole Herb Jones thing, I mean, regardless of what the Pels do, whether they try to stick it out with this group or they do what I've been saying and move Zion Williamson and move Brandon Ingram and try to reset for the next iteration, you want Herb Jones to be part of it. They're not trading him.
Yeah. Great contract, young enough to be a part of whatever you're doing, easy enough player to be a part of whatever you're doing. Yeah, he's not going anywhere. So, but yeah, with the Mavs, sure. I mean, makes sense, right? You've got ball handling and scoring with Luka and Kyrie. You don't need any more of that. You've got your bigs covered with Lively, Gafford, and Washington. So, yeah, you're looking for wings. My thing is it would need to probably be perimeter defenders who can also shoot, right? Because otherwise they're just not going to play them. It would be my guess. This is where, because I saw one of the reactions to this was, don't they have Klay Thompson? Klay Thompson is not that dude anymore. Like, that's not who he is. Klay Thompson is much more of a small four now than he is a 2-3 who can defend ones. Like, he's good at what he does. He's done a really, quite frankly, a remarkable job of like adjusting his career to like he's really now just truly a spot up shooter who can also defend, but he defends with strength and smarts. He doesn't defend with quickness. This is not the guy that the Warriors were putting on Kyrie Irving back in the NBA Finals because they didn't want Steph covering Kyrie. Like, he doesn't do that anymore. So that's why they're looking. We'll see. I kind of like Jason Kidd has used this time without Luka. He's really experimenting with different stuff. He's been playing some different kind of lineups with multiple bigs and lineups with multiple ball handlers and lineups with a bunch of shooters and kind of different weird looks. But that's great. As long as you keep winning enough, now is the time to experiment. So I think that's been good stuff.
And you just may stumble upon something that you then need to turn to come playoff time when there's an advantage there for doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's go here, Keith. I know you've got some two-way contract transactions to get into, and I believe we're getting close to 10-day contracts, aren't we?
Yeah. Yep, you're on it. So the two ways, we're not going to break them all down and what all the moves were. But why you're seeing so many of these is we're heading into the time where two-way contracts will guarantee later this month now that we're in January. So what teams are doing is, this guy hasn't really worked out, or we have a need at this position instead of that position for just some more organizational depth. And that's why we're seeing some of these two-way shuffles. Some of the guys too are realizing guys who maybe signed a two-way over the summertime are now like, all right, it's not going to happen for me here. I'm not going to break through. I'm not going to get a standard spot. And a lot of times they're going to the team and saying, hey, can I get waived? Even if it means they have to go to the G League straight out as a G League player, they'd rather have freedom than be confined to a team. And hey, I'm stuck with Team X where I'm the sixth ball handler in the organization, and there's never going to be an opportunity for me to get promoted to a standard deal here. So why not get myself set free? And oftentimes teams are willing to do that. So that's why we're seeing some of that. You're absolutely right. 10-day call-ups are coming this Sunday, January 5th. Teams can start signing players to a 10-day contract. Rules are pretty simple. You just have to have an open roster spot and be able to fit the guy in under your hard cap if you're dealing with one. So right now, everybody can afford to bring in a guy on a 10-day. We'll see. There's a handful of teams that won't, even though they have open spots, because they're not going to eat up any of their available money for that. But yeah, we're getting to it, man. It's transaction season in full, January 7th. So next week, on next Tuesday, I believe that is. If players are not waived by the end of the day on January 7th on standard contracts, their contracts become fully guaranteed. The league-wide guarantee day is really January 10th, but you have to clear waivers. So that means you have to be waived by the end of business day on the 7th in order to get there. So we've seen a couple guys get waived in recent days. PJ Dozier got waived with the Minnesota Timberwolves and things like that. So we'll see, kind of where it comes together, with that.
Well, it's certainly something to keep an eye on as we get into the transaction game and teams are starting to make moves and things of that nature. But this is an exciting time of the year. There's a lot of stuff going on. We mentioned the 10-day contracts coming up. We, of course, have the trade deadline coming up. After that, the buyout market going on. There's a lot of stuff happening around the league right now as we're getting into 2025, as teams are kind of getting ready, making their final preparations for the home stretch of the season, which, I mean, Keith, we're going to be there. But before we know it, it's going to be the All-Star break. And then we're going to be looking at kind of that final stretch, and teams are already kind of looking ahead and getting prepared for that and what all that's going to look like. So this is a very, very exciting time.
The trade deadline, like it's crazy. Like how, I mean, it really does come. It feels like we go into that time vortex of like Christmas, New Year's, where it's like all time ceases to matter, and then it's like we come out of it and it's like, hey, here's 9,000 dates to watch with the NBA, and a bunch of important stuff is going on. And then, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we got trade deadline, be a couple weeks later, we'll be on the All-Star break. And then when we come back from that, it's a sprint right to the playoffs from there. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on, but great time for you to get involved here on the Basketball Bulletin Friday, tomorrow, live show. We'll let you know when on that, but the best way to not miss it, subscribe and turn on the notifications. That'll let you know when we're going live. And now we've got it all set up so it can be live before we're actually in there. And you guys can get your questions loaded up and preloaded in, and we'll be ready to go. So really excited for tomorrow. It's been a minute since we've done a Friday live show together.
Did you catch it?
I didn't.
You called this the Basketball Bulletin.
Oh my God, did I? Oh geez. That's on my mind.
You guys should check that out as well. But this is the front office show. Make sure you do subscribe here too. And of course, over on the Basketball Bulletin, the Substack got some great stuff going on the YouTube channel as well. No, I know that you didn't want to forget to plug the Basketball Bulletin as well. And so we just snuck that in right there.
I wish I was that good. Unfortunately, no. I'm in my last round of the medicine from the flu, so I'm gonna blame it on that. That's it. So when I'm mush brain tomorrow, I'll have to come up with another new excuse for that. But until then, we'll run with that.
All right, everybody. We'll see what kind of state Keith is in tomorrow when we do have front office Friday live. We'll see everybody there. Until then, see ya and stay safe.